Apple, the Super Bowl, and the future of streaming with Charlotte Henry. This is TV Plus Talk on MacVoices.
Hello and welcome to TV Plus Talk, where, well, we talk all things Apple TV. I'm Charlotte Henry. He is Chuck Joyner. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Charlotte. Good to see you, as always.
Very good to see you. I'm a little bit tired this morning because I stayed up to watch some of the Super Bowl. We're recording it the day after the Super Bowl. Although I have to say, it did kind of help me go to sleep, that game.
Well, you were staying up a lot later, obviously, because of the time zone difference. But I kind of agree with you. Yeah, it wasn't the best Super Bowl, unfortunately.
No. I think for most people, some combination of the fly past and Bad Bunny were more a highlight than the games. Now, I don't get the same adverts you do. Did anything stand out to you? Any of the commercials? Was there any Apple commercials that we need to know about? I don't get to see any of this because it's on a completely different. We get the American broadcast and commentary, but we don't get the American commercials, obviously.
Well, which makes sense. First of all, I'm quick to say that I sort of faded a little bit into the third quarter and stopped paying attention for a while. But the biggest thing, I don't think there was any particular commercial that jumped out and said, "Oh, this is fantastic" to me. And maybe it's just because we are who we are. But the AI factor in this year's Super Bowl commercials was pretty darn dominant. From de-aging to, combining people and even modifying some legacy, some legacy material. Specifically, the one that got me was from they took a couple clips from Jurassic Park. So it really does show just what can be done. And
so you're talking about how AI made the commercials.
Or yes, or what was used in the making of the commercials. Yeah.
Right. These were not AI products being advertised.
Well, there was that factor too. I mean, that's it. AI was in a lot of places. Copilot was there, of course. ChatGPT was making a little bit of fun of Anthropic. It was just everywhere you turned when it came to the commercials. If you were paying attention. Now, if you're just somebody watching casually and thinking, "Oh, that's cute," and not about how did they do that, then you may have missed some of it. But that was more interesting to me than most of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say to you is, obviously, we focus on Apple TV, but we're interested in Apple's media services broadly, and of course, the halftime show is the Apple Music halftime show. It's sponsored. It's been a few years now. It's been sponsored by Apple Music. I think when I was watching the highlights this morning, the camera cut, is picking out famous people in the crowd. And Zane Lowe, who runs Apple Music and started off as a DJ in the UK, was sitting there, in some plush seat in the stadium enjoying the Santa Clara sun. So it's interesting how Apple has built this relationship with the Super Bowl, which leads me to my next question, which is, should Apple try a bid and show the Super Bowl?
Okay, so I've got to answer that two ways. If they want to continue to have a high presence in a certain faction of the audience, absolutely. And there's no question that this is a big, big event. But it's fast becoming two things. It's fast becoming not a halftime show for the people that are in the audience, on the ground in the stadium. It clearly is, for TV, and that I have mixed feelings about that. But also, we all have to get used to the idea that no matter who they pick, no matter what artist they pick, it's not going to be for everyone. I don't think there is an artist anymore that's for everyone. Bad Bunny's, doing it all in Spanish. has been hugely controversial. I'm sure it's going to be all over the news today. Just the whole presentation.
Most streamed artists, I think most streamed artists last year, hugely popular artist.
Exactly. But they're also, there are people that is not very popular with. And this is not a political statement. It's just the way it is. That if you have an entire half show performed in a different language, whatever that language happens to be, it's going to have a certain limiting appeal. Most streamed artists are not. So, I don't think it's money poorly spent. What I don't know is, because there were several, I don't know if you got them, but there were several mentions before and after about switch to Apple Music, go to Apple Music, that kind of thing. And there's no denying that with that many people and the people that had a positive reaction to Bad Bunny, that may drive some traffic and maybe drive some subscriptions.
Yeah, I've just fired up the Apple Music app. I looked in both TV and music, and you can watch the whole halftime show in the Apple Music app, because they brand it very distinctly, don't they? Apple, it's the Apple Music halftime show. Anyway,
right.
Interesting. I'll be interested to see if other Apple services get more involved in this mega event as time goes on.
Well, and I did not know. I did not look up this morning. Honestly, I didn't even think about the fact that I might be able to rewatch the entire halftime show on Apple TV. So that makes perfect sense.
It's on Apple. It's on the Apple Music app. I don't know if you have an Apple TV. It'll be flexible there. I have to have a look. But it's within Apple Music at the moment. Okay.
Well, at least it's there somewhere. I thought it was interesting that at the very end there was a comment about. It almost made it sound like that the NFL was the one that chose Bad Bunny. And my understanding had been that it was Apple's choice because they were putting on the halftime show. So I don't know. I'm
sure it's a combination of the two, right?
Yeah, you would think that, the NFL is not going to turn everything over to Apple, no matter how much Apple likes to control the narrative.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I just wonder if, we'll see maybe Apple, could Apple even try and show the Super Bowl at halftime? I imagine that won't be possible because it has to stay on network TV. But I wonder if with a streaming service, it can show more of what's going on at the Super Bowl. A couple of other specifically TV things to talk about. There's a new show coming out called Apple had a big press day, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things that came out of that was a show called Way of the Warrior Kid, and it's based on a novel by Jocko Willink. You've got Chris Pratt in there, Linda Cardellini, Jude Hill. It's like, these are big names in here. It's coming out. It's not coming out till November, actually. That's the 20th of November it's coming out. So that's just one to put in your diary for later in the year. And let's get on to that event, actually. Because Apple had a sort of a lineup and had a big event announcing all different shows that are on the way. And looking at this, to me, it was just a classic TV up front. Just like when in 2019, Apple launched Apple TV, as it was Apple TV Plus. And, we had an event with Oprah and Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston and Big Bird. And do you remember that event back in whatever it was, 2018, 2019?
Very well.
And it was exactly. And it was a classic TV up front, wasn't it? And this to me seems Apple playing that game again.
If they are, that's great. I mean, I'd like to think that maybe somebody's been listening to us do TV Plus talk and all the complaints that we've had or the challenges we've had about the lack of publicity and of making people aware of all this great content. Maybe this is Apple just recognizing that needs to be done, that is important, because it's certainly, even for someone who's not necessarily a star watcher, there were a lot of very recognizable names and faces there. And so that in itself, maybe the synergy of having all of those folks in one place at one event will help drive some of the awareness.
You want to see more of this kind of event?
I want to see what works. And I don't know how you measure that.
But we
because
don't know how to measure it because Apple never tells us how many people are watching, listening, whatever.
no, I mean, I will say the Apple/tech press did give this a fairly decent amount of visibility, and
Mm.
that in itself is good because usually, unless you have a TV, first of all, unless it's a slow news time, or unless you have a series that really makes waves because of star power or popularity, it just doesn't necessarily cover everything. And so hopefully this will make everyone more aware of it.
Yeah, and that includes advertisers, of course, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But let me flip it around, Charlotte. Let me ask you, do you want to see Apple do more of this? Do you think this is an effective way to promote?
I tell you what I do think, and I don't know the actual answer to this question. I think the answer has to be yes, whether I care or not. I think in the media industry, you have to play the game a bit, and this kind of event is part of playing the game. And I think it's fascinating that the tech company is now having to behave like a media company. And this is an obsession of mine, Chuck. And so I think it does have to do these events because it has to be taken seriously as a TV company. Amazon has achieved that because it's had big series. Apple has probably got there mostly thanks to Ted Lasso. But I think it has to do these things so it is taken seriously as a media company.
Okay, that's fair. And again, maybe we still are in a world where that kind of promotion and publicity is effective.
I don't know if it's effective directly to people going and watching the show. I don't think that having this kind of event then results in someone that's not you or I doing the kind of things you and I spend our day doing, going, oh, I better get an Apple TV subscription and turn on this show or that show. I don't think that happens. I think it's a trickle down thing. I think you have these kind of events and then that feeds into the media, and then the media feeds it into sort of mainstream viewers. I think that's more how it works.
I would agree with that. I think that, though, it's important to promote not just the service, but the shows, because I think more and more we're seeing people buy services based on shows as opposed to based on service.
I think that must be true.
And maybe that's my bias, but in fact, I just was reading an article this morning talking about the most effective way to get television and what television, whatever that means now, costs. And they were saying, for the major networks, get it here in the U.S. anyway. I can't speak for the U.K., but here, get an over-the-air antenna if you can possibly do it to pick up your main networks, and then pick the service or services that best suit you. Because otherwise, what you're paying is crazy. Now, not everybody has an OTA solution or option available to them, but it does make you wonder.
So, and this, we won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but you're literally but don't you have to pay for the networks as well once you've paid for the antenna?
No. There is still free over the air. So if I'm close enough and I can put up a TV, then if I can put up an antenna, I should be able to get the major networks.
Okay.
Because
in the UK, you're meant to pay for you're meant to have a license fee which funds the BBC, whatever live TV you want to watch.
I have
never.
It's
a different system.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting because I have never known there to be any kind of licensing fee or anything to erect an antenna.
I'll explain that. We'll do the license fee debate off air. It's an interesting one here in the UK. Okay. But yeah, to watch live television, whatever the channel in the UK, you have to pay for a license fee, which is why I kind of find it interesting that you could just buy a piece of kit in the US and away you go.
Hey, if you don't mind, I want to go back to the Super Bowl for just a second because
Please.
I gave you the reaction from the US side, but how about from the UK side? I mean, right now our environment here is very politically charged. I'm not about to debate whether yours is or mine are more politically charged.
You want to see what's going on here today.
but how did Bad Bunny land on your side of the pond?
I truly don't know. I don't know how many people were still awake at that point, if I'm honest. I don't know how many people have made it through 2 quarters, particularly as the first 2 quarters seemingly were the worst too. Look, he's a very popular artist, right? I think what I do think is there's not quite the political element. And just flipping it back to Apple, we know how... this thought has only just occurred to me as you answered the question, so sorry that we're sort of returning to the top of the show. But we know how delicate Apple is around political issues, right? Tim Cook is a very savvy operator. I know he got criticism. He visited the White House, didn't he, not that long ago? Some people didn't like that. He's done business in China that people don't like. You know, there's also... But he's always managed to keep... Even as Silicon Valley's got more politicized, he has always managed to keep Apple on an even keel, right? That's very important to him. He's a very neutral... Like, I don't think you or I could guess how Tim Cook votes, for example. And that's very, very deliberate. And so it's quite interesting that they allowed in such a politicized time, a potentially politicizing artist. I find that quite interesting.
And again, I'm not sure if they're playing, maybe to your point, they're playing to the most streamed artist. That was
that's how they would justify it.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, because there's certainly a business case to be made for making that selection. But
this is a hugely popular artist to be in the halftime. He's very popular on Apple. Here you go. It's a great show. Have fun.
Well, and to go back to something I said earlier, it's just, I don't care who you pick at this stage. You're never going to satisfy everyone because everything has become so segmented and so divisive, unfortunately. And I don't know. I don't know of any artist you could put up there that you would say everybody from every faction is going to say that's okay. They're always going to assign their values. I mean,
but also that's the nature of music, right? That's just the nature of music. It's the nature of TV. You know, how many times have we discussed shows on this podcast where I like it, you're not that interested, vice versa? I mean, that's the nature of art and all of those things, right? Yeah, it's just interesting that Apple has continued to have its name on this. I'm interested if it continues to expand its relationship with the Super Bowl beyond the halftime show. And I don't know, have we had a number of how much this cost Apple to do the Apple Music halftime show?
I don't remember seeing one. That doesn't mean it's not out there.
I'd love to know how much the whole relationship costs.
Yeah. Huh. I can't answer that.
Shall I tell you what I think? And again, this is just occurring to me and I'm getting distracted. But, I kind of think Apple should find a way to have a highlights package from the Super Bowl on Apple TV, as well as having the halftime show, which it can broadcast through its apps. They should get like a highlights package as well. Do that deal. Make yourself really associated with this hugely popular event across your services.
I just did a quick Google search, and according to what had popped up, this says, and no citations here, Apple pays approximately $50 million per year to sponsor the Super Bowl halftime show under a 5-year deal that began in 2023.
That's incredibly good value. Considering a 30-second slot on TV costs about $10 million.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good value.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
This is why I'm saying they should get more involved, right?
Yeah. Well, but it's the NFL's property, and I can understand how... And the NFL, if there's anybody that is as protective of their property as Apple is, it's the NFL. And so they very much control it. They're cutting every deal they can possibly find to have games on one network, on the other network. We can debate whether that's a good idea or not, but bottom line is they're doing a lot of deals. Prime on Thursday night, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football on NBC. I assume that's going to happen next year. So it's just all over the place.
It's interesting. The NFL is the least fragmented thing in the UK. It's
That's
basically
interesting.
all on, it's all on Sky Sports. And later during this season, Channel 5, which is a free-to-air broadcaster, got a couple of games on a Sunday night, which was good for like accessibility to American football. But yeah, basically, if you want to watch American football in the UK, you have to have either Sky Sports or an NFL pass if you really care about watching a certain team.
Interesting.
Whereas our soccer's more all over the place.
Every time we have these kind of discussions, Charlotte, I learn something, and I think the audience probably does, because we tend to, everybody thinks of that their way is the way it is everywhere. And so I had no idea that.
I enjoy hearing. Wait, who is your team? I don't know this. Who's your NFL team?
I really don't have one. There's some
is that allowed?
There's some I enjoy more than others, but
okay.
I enjoy seeing a good game, and
but you must have a team. Who did you grow up supporting?
Nobody. Just I lived close enough to Baltimore and Washington D.C. The Colts were in Baltimore when I grew up. Now Redskins, now Commanders, were in D.C. So that was probably the closest thing I had, because that was physically closer, even though I live in Pennsylvania, than either one of the two Pennsylvania teams.
Okay, so I have a confession for you. So my rule with American sports, which as you know I'm a fan of, is I basically always support the New York team. Just because it's the city I know the best in America. This is not going well for me, Chuck. No, but it's not going well for me, Chuck, is it? Think it through.
Well, think about the Commanders. I'm not far behind you, Charlie.
No, but like Giants, Yankees managed to mess up. Knicks are trying to mess up. It's not a great life choice, but anyway. While we're on the sports theme, actually, Eddie Q, who runs services at Apple, he sort of left a little tidbit that there's going to be a sequel to F1 the movie. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. And it goes back to actually something I wanted to say about the upfronts as well. I just don't think Apple is doing... Like, there's some really great... we say it every week. I'm happy to say it this week. There's some great stuff on Apple TV. We name it every week, things we're enjoying. But what I often see is them dipping into novels and that kind of IP. They had a hit with F1 the movie, so now they want to do another one. Do something original.
That's a really interesting point, because I feel like a lot of this stuff is original. Yes, I understand.
It's not someone sitting in a room in LA working for Apple and going, we're going to create some IP that's really exciting.
Okay. But is that really realistic? I mean, there's nobody out there that is consistently, hitting it out of the park every single time to create the IP.
And I criticize them as well.
Well, I guess
Disney has got into a massive mess just trying to squeeze the life out of Marvel, for example.
And Star Wars.
Yeah, quite right.
Yeah. And I guess
how much... I don't want to upset you as I say this, Chuck. I know how you feel about these things. But, how much can Paramount flog Star Trek? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going through... Let's talk about what came out in that upfront event. So we've got Shrinking Season 3. That's on its way. There's a new Apple film called Eternity. That's part of its relationship with A24. Fine. Season 2 of The Last Thing He Told Me. Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Season 2. There's a film called Imperfect Woman that's based on a novel by Araminta Hall. For All Mankind, Season 5. Your Friends and Neighbours, Season 2. Outcome. It's a dark comedy that centers on its character played by Keanu Reeves. This looks more like a new original thing because that actually is from Apple Studios. There's Margot E. There's David Kelly, who's writing that, called Margot's Got Money Troubles. That looks original. Criminal Record Season 2. I'm not going to go through the whole press release and naming all the, but you understand the point I'm making. There's a lot of returning seasons, which is good. Like if you build up a relationship with a show, you want it to continue. That's fine. There's a lot of adaptations from novels. I don't know. I expect, they've got Apple Studios. Do something a bit more exciting.
I just looked up on Google because I thought, and I believe I'm right, For All Mankind is an original. There was no novel basis.
Correct.
And so
that was original.
Yeah, there's one.
But we're now on season 5 of it.
Right. And well, it must be working. And that, that to me, well, we could say the same thing about Slow Horses, but that
based
came from a series of novels. But on the other hand, if The
Morning Show, based on Top of the Morning by Brian Stelter.
Okay, but if you're from a purely business success standpoint, doesn't it make sense to take some IP that is popular somewhere and build on that instead of just going straight from scratch and saying that, we're going to have this show about, a kid that sweeps floors in a bakery?
Yeah, it probably does, but it doesn't make the most interesting pieces of work.
No, but it also, I think then it becomes contingent upon the directors and the producers and the writers to make it interesting, because clearly you don't just pick up some dime store novel and pay millions of dollars for it. The IP they pick up has an audience already, and that audience is going to want to see what you do with that IP.
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced.
I'm not convinced. I'm also just checking. I think Trying was all original. That's been renewed for a 5th season. I don't think that's based on a novel, as far as I can tell. So, like that's hugely popular. So, like when they get it right, Apple, these original shows, For All Mankind is hugely popular. People love it, but I would like to see a bit more of that than constantly picking up other IP. I think that's the point I'm getting at. And, not every show needs 5 seasons. They should have left Ted Lasso at season 3, but they couldn't help themselves.
No, that's not fair. You haven't seen the new season.
Oh, it might be great, but first of all,
love it.
They told me in an interview it was going to be 3 seasons, and I'm furious they've changed that.
You're still upset about that.
Furious. And also end things, know when to say goodbye. Apple used to be really good at that on Apple TV. I love Mythic Quest. I'd watch more of it, but I think they probably made the right call ending it after 4 seasons or whatever it is. So, you sort of have to know when to end things as well and create something new.
I agree with you if the 3rd, 4th, 5th season doesn't live up to it. But if it lives up to it, then why? Your point about Paramount flogging Star Trek is well made. I feel like Star Wars has flogged things even more. Marvel,
for sure.
Marvel's just a little different. I'll defend Marvel a little bit because they've taken TV shows and taken secondary characters and put them as the centerpiece for that show.
Yeah.
And that if you're a fan of that character, then it works for you largely.
Yeah, except they cancelled my favorite one.
Which was?
She-Hulk.
Oh, okay. Well, did you feel like She-Hulk was I don't know how we got here. Did you feel like She-Hulk, though, was true to the comic, and was it satisfying to you?
Yes. I like the character. I like the comics. I wanted more of the TV show.
Okay. It did not resonate with me because I felt like it was changing the mythos of the Hulk part of the franchise, if you will, and that disturbed me a little bit. But they
Okay,
sort of they did sort of the same thing with the Scarlet Witch as well. So, they've made some interesting choices, and we both know that sometimes the creatives just can't stand not to mess with the foundations of an IP. I mean, inevitably, we have to do a reboot. We have to kill the character off and then find a way to bring them back because it's so dramatic.
But isn't that what Apple's doing?
Oh, you mean with F1?
Well, if they did another F1, yes.
I hope that because they're not rushing into it, Charlotte, I hope that somebody is going to really wait for the right script. And then it could be just as good. But
we will have to see, and we can have a very heated debate if and when F1, the movie, the second movie, comes out.
Yeah. Before we're going to save ourselves some emails because there are going to be some listeners that say you guys are way off topic. Yeah, maybe we went down a couple rabbit holes, but these are all things that are affecting how TV is being produced and consumed, whether it's Apple TV or not. What everybody else does is affecting Apple TV. What Apple TV does is affecting everybody else. It's just one big Wild West show out there, and we've already seen some consolidations. I think we're going to have to see more because I don't think people can continue or are going to be willing to continue to pay the prices.
That 100%. And the one thing that does continue to make Apple TV stand out, whatever my sort of, I'll do something original, all it does is make originals. There's no catalogue. And that still, I think, has a lot of value to it.
To be clear, you're saying they aren't paying for a back catalog. They're developing their own.
Yeah, they haven't taken stuff from other places. Everything in there has been made specifically for Apple TV.
Right. And if you think back to the early days, now I know it was coincidental with the pandemic to some degree, but there were some really interesting experimental shows that, again, we never heard about. You found out about just straight by accident, either just by looking around or having somebody tell you about them. And you're going to ask me what I'm talking about, and I can't tell you one right now. But there were a couple that were just really interesting, and I would say go back and look and see because the back catalog is there from Apple TV, and there was some experimentation going on. And now it's become a little bit bigger business, and now they aren't maybe experimenting as much.
Interesting. Maybe we'll see how experimental they are when we see all these new shows and movies come out. And we look forward to your emails that we've talked about Marvel, Netflix, and everything else in this show.
A great idea for an Apple TV series would be about the streaming wars. And I know somebody that wrote a book about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously very in favor of book adaptions if it is my book. Obviously.
There you go. And we'll have Charlotte's phone number in the show notes. So.
Yeah, please. Email address. You can speak to my agent.
Anything else strike you that's going on with Apple TV Plus, Charlotte?
No, I mean, I'm really looking for, there's a lot, as ever, I'm really looking forward to settling down to. I think we're going to have to do a sort of breakdown of Hijack season 2, which I think people are really enjoying. And I think I saw The Guardian describe it as the most effortlessly bingeable show around. So we'll enjoy Idris Elba. I've held out on starting Shrinking because I kind of want a few episodes to be there so I can have a binge of that. You know, I love that show. So those are the ones on my to-watch list for the moment. What are you waiting to dive into?
I'm on both of those. And of course, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters premieres coming up at the end of February, I believe, and that's
Yep.
one I'm very much looking forward to.
Season 2, yeah.
Yeah, and after that, I know there are a number of other things coming up. They're just right now they're sort of out of sight, out of mind, because I've got a watch list as long as your arm, and I just don't have the time to get to everything.
Mine's getting a bit out of control. Actually, I need to commit some non-sport viewing time to it. Hey, I think if I watch it, it counts as work, right? So I can just do that.
Sure. Nobody is forcing you to watch or not watch anything, Charlotte.
But I think it counts as work. I think it's essential that I watch these great shows.
Well, you're in the business. You need to know who's winning the next version of the streaming wars.
Well, exactly. And I need to know all the shows so we can talk about this on this show.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And we appreciate all your homework.
Thank you so much. Well, we're either going to get in great trouble for this show or get lots of listeners to this show joining in the debate. If you do have strong opinions on anything we've said today, and we hope you do, drop us a line. Where can people find you, Chuck?
MacVoices.com. There's a contact form over there, or you can just email me directly at chuck@MacVoices.com. And you can find me on all the socials as @ChuckJoyner. Charlotte, where should people contact you about your upcoming series, Streaming Wars, that needs to be adapted?
I'm at Charlotte A. Henry across all of social media. If you head over to the edition, ADD.net, that's all where I put podcasts, blogs, videos, all sorts of things related to the crossover of culture, media and sport, including stuff about Apple TV, of course. So head over there. This show will go out there. We'll be back if we haven't been swamped by angry emails in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.